In session number 10 today, we take up a very significant aspect relating to military law, and that deals with the process of induction in the armed forces, that is the entry in the military service. And for this, with regard to officers, this is known as commissioning when they are allowed entry in military service. Therefore, we would cover induction and commissioning in this session. The aim of this session is to study the legal provisions that govern and impact the entry by way of induction to the armed forces. Relevant reference in this regard is Chapter 3 of the Army Act that comes under the heading of Commission, Appointment and Enrollment. As I said, commission is a term which is in context of officers, whereas enrollment is used for persons below officer rank. Now, the basic section, we start with section 10, which says that President may grant to such person as he thinks fit a commission as an officer or as a JCO, or appoint any person as a warrant officer of the regular army. Two aspects I would like to highlight with regard to section 10. Number one, the President grants commission to officers. He also gives commission to the NCOs who are promoted as junior commissioned officers. In certain cases, direct JCO commission is also given, for example, in the military engineering services or to the religious teachers. And insofar as warrant officers are concerned, which are in Air Force or in Navy, they are appointed, they are not granted commission. Now that's the language which has been used in the Army Act, and it was so there even before independence in the Indian Army Act. Warrant officer, this rank in Army is only in the Army Postal Service, whereas it is used in Air Force and in Navy. And insofar as the hierarchy of ranks is concerned, warrant officers are placed in between JCOs and NCOs. So therefore, they are junior than JCOs and senior to NCOs. A word about commission in the Territorial Army. Now, Territorial Army is not a standing army for all time. It is an ad hoc force. It is recruited from the persons who are already employed, gainfully employed, or self-employed. They, in case they wish to opt, can become part of the Territorial Army, and it is a part-time commitment. It is not a full-time career. For the duration that they come and serve in Territorial Army, perhaps usually 2 months in a year, they get salary for that period and not after that. The other term is conscription, which is not used in the context of India, and this is known as draft or compulsory military service. A number of Western countries and USA, they have the system of draft where all adults beyond an age are required to render compulsory military service. After section 10, other relevant provision is section 11, which says that ineligibility of alliance for enrollment, no person who is not a citizen of India shall accept with the consent of the central government signified in writing be enrolled in the regular army. So the language would make it clear to you that no person can be given entry, but such a person can be inducted in the army if the central government has given its consent in writing. And it is also relevant in this regard that this section carries a proviso that nothing contained in this section shall bar the enrollment of subjects of Nepal in the regular army. So the Nepalese, though they are not Indian citizens, by virtue of section 11, they can be inducted, and they are being inducted in the regular army. The next section concerns the female, their entry in the army, and it says no female shall be eligible for enrollment or employment in the regular army. Now that's a blanket blockade, but thereafter it says except in such corps, department, branch, or other body forming part of or attached to any regular army as the central government made by notification direct. Now, the basic premise is that females were not eligible for enrollment or employment. The exception can be made with regard to those portions of the regular army which is described here as corps, regiment, department, etc., where the central government has permitted. Now, traditionally, the two areas where females were permitted entry were the Army Medical Corps and the Army Dental Corps, and secondly was military nursing service. You would notice that with regard to the medical or dental, the word used is corps, and insofar as nurses are concerned, it was military nursing service. It is so still. Now, the change that has been brought in from around 1993, that gradually females are now allowed entry in different arms and services of the regular army. They are not there in infantry so far. So the central government has permitted females that they can be inducted, and insofar as below officer rank, so they are only being taken in the corps of military police. The slide in front of you indicates some of the regiment or corps where women are allowed entry and their commission, granted commission under the Women Special Entry Scheme. These are the AMC, Army Dental Corps, Postal Service, Military Nursing Service, and various others as listed there. For those of you who are law students, you would find that serial 12 list JAG department, Judge Advocate General's department, and in this department, sizable portion of JAG department is being held by women officers. I mentioned that below officer ranks, so far women are only being inducted in the corps of military police. Now, the word commission is granted by the President of India to officers and junior commission officers, and the warrant officers are appointed as such. Now, there are different modes of commission, and these include permanent and regular commission, where the army gives this type of commission after the training at Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. Then there is short service commission, which is given, or short service commission is granted to the cadets who pass out from Officers Training Academy at Chennai. And then there is a regimental commission and a special list. Now, special list commission is only meant for the quartermasters, and regimental commission is granted to the JCOs, senior NCOs who may be serving in the army, and from ranks they are promoted to the officer cadre and they have what is known as regimental commission. Now, how does one find out? Every officer has a number assigned to him. So the regular officers, they write IC, Indian Commission, which denotes permanent and regular commission. Short service commission, they write as SS, short service. Regimental commission is RC, and a specialist is SL. And mode of commissioning, there are two different modes. One entry is through the Union Public Service Commission, and the second is called non-UPSC entry. Say, for example, in the Judge Advocate General Department, it is a non-UPSC entry, and the mode of induction is not controlled, not governed by the Public Service Commission. For your information, there are various steps in the selection as an officer. There is written test, it may be held. Then there is a screening at the Services Selection Board, followed by physical and medical test. Medical fitness is checked at laid down military hospitals. Then a final merit list is prepared, and then candidates are sent for pre-commission training. Now, these are the various steps for induction as an officer, but say in the first step, which is written test by UPSC, it's not applicable for the Judge Advocate General Department entry, because that is a non-UPSC entry. Direct junior commissioned officer status is given only in the Corps of Engineers. I mentioned the military engineering service, and to the religious teacher, each military unit has a place of worship, and that is headed by a religious teacher. So they come as Naib Subedar, Subedar, and Subedar Major. These are the modes of entry for the religious teacher. Certain terms which have a legal connotation. Enrolling officer. If you go to Army Rule 7, it lays down what are the different types of persons by virtue of the post which they are holding, that they can act as enrolling officers. Enrollment means registering or entering the name of a person who wants to join army, who has been found fit to join the army on the rolls of the army, and after carrying out the basic enrollment training, the person is then enlisted as new soldier. That is the process of recruitment. Now, this is the process, the mode of entry for persons below officer rank is based on three steps or three stages. Initially, there is recruitment. Now, in recruitment, you would have seen that at number of places in India, there are recruitment offices, recruitment centers. Now, there on specified laid down notified dates in a year, recruitment is carried out. So the candidates, they go there and they are subjected to the laid down screening, which may be physical test or physical fitness, also followed by a written test, perhaps objective type, that is consists of process of recruitment. Once a candidate has been found declared fit for recruitment, then there is a process of enrollment. After enrollment, a person goes, the candidate goes, he is then called a recruit to a regimental center, carries out his training, and at the end of the training, if he is fit, then he is attested. So this is a three-stage, three-limbed process consisting of recruitment, enrollment, and attestation. And the legal aspect here, which is very significant, is that the process of enrollment, a candidate is put to certain questions. Say, for example, are you an Indian national? Now, his answer is recorded in the enrollment form. And if he gives a false answer, then he is liable to get punished, liable to be tried under the provisions of Army Act 1950. It is an offense. After complying with the provisions of Section 13, now I am reading Section 14, what it provides under the Army Act. When the enrolling officer is satisfied that the person in front of him is desirous of being enrolled? Now that's very important. He's asked this question that, do you want to get enrolled? Now, this follows the basic law that only those who volunteer to join the army, they are inducted. So there should be no doubt left that the candidate in front wants to serve in army. So therefore, a satisfaction is required to be reached by the enrolling officer that the person in front of him wants to join the army. Uh, he must understand the questions put to him. So he is asked certain questions, like I said, about his nationality, about his date of birth, about his religion, etc. And once he consents, gives his willingness that yes, he understands those conditions of service and he agrees to abide by them. And if the officer perceives no impediment, the recruiting officer has no doubt, enrollment officer, then he will sign on that paper and also ask the candidate to sign the enrollment paper. And by this process, once the two signatures are there, the person is deemed to be duly enrolled. So the process of enrollment is over once that enrollment form is signed. Now, the legal implication of this process is that after the process of enrollment, if a person, the candidate who had come as a recruit, he has undergone his training, his name was entered on the rolls of any corps, say infantry, artillery, armored corps, EME, signals, etc., and he has undergone training, then he cannot claim his discharge that, look, this thing was improperly done or not done in my process of enrollment. So if there is any impropriety or something has been left out in the process of enrollment, having received his pay for 3 months and done that part of training, the person then cannot turn back and say that, look, I want to now go out because that process was not done. So the process of enrollment shall be deemed to have been carried out and no irregularity or illegality on any process of induction shall not invalidate those proceedings, act, or thing done prior to that discharge. Now, this is something uh, quite often invoked and has to be remembered in terms of military law. Now, recruiting officers, they carry out process of recruitment, and the recruitment is carried out, the basic training and special training at the regimental centers. Now, what's the difference between basic training and special training? Basic training is for all candidates who have been recruited, and special training may be or relates to that particular corps, like artillery will have its own special training, signals will have its own, or air defense artillery will have their own. So these are the two components of training, basic training and special training. At the end of the training is the third stage or the third action, which is attestation. So a person who had been enrolled in the regular army, then he is administered an oath or affirmation. And this oath or affirmation of military fidelity, he says that I would bear true allegiance to the Constitution of India and go wherever ordered by land, sea, or air. Now, all persons who have been enrolled as combatants, they have to be attested. All persons who may later be selected to for promotion to NCO or acting NCO rank, they need to be attested, and any other persons who the central government notifies in a notification, they are also required to be attested. And the process of attestation is laid down in Army Act Section 17, read with Army Rules 8. And the oath or affirmation which the soldiers are required to take is that I, and then the name of that person, say if the person is Manoj Kumar, I, Manoj Kumar, do solemnly affirm that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established, and that I will, as in duty bound, honestly and faithfully serve in the regular army of the Union of India and go wherever ordered by land, sea, or air, and that I will observe and obey all commands of the President of the Union of India and the command of any officer set over me, even to the peril of my life. Now, that is the form of affirmation. Similarly, there is oath, and the difference is oath or affirmation is taken by placing the hand on a religious book. The Christians and Sikhs, they are administered oath, whereas Hindus and Muslims, they are given affirmation. And this attestation is done by all combatants or other enrolled persons who may be selected to hold or hold non-commissioned rank when they are reported fit for duty. And they reported fit for duty when they have carried out their basic and special training successfully. And the law in this regard is in Army Rail Rule 8. Now, who carries out attestation? This is also very important. Attestation can be carried out by the commanding officer of that person who's going to be attested, or in the presence of commanding officer, any other officer who's empowered by the commanding officer, and the relevant rule is in Article 9(2). And if it is not done there due to any reason, then any magistrate, recruiting officer, or assistant recruiting officer can also carry out this function of process of attestation. I'd like to explain and invite your attention to case in this regard of Tarif Singh Shanti Swaroop. It is AIR 1971, Delhi 233, and there the court had held that a commission in section 10, the word as it has been used, it does not mean that commission has to be granted permanent regular commission. Even emergency commission by president does not in any case contradict or clash with the wordings of section 10. So it is not necessary that only permanent regular commission should be granted. The other case is of Central Airmen Selection Board versus Surendra Kumar Das. In this case, 2003, Supreme Court held that where a candidate on being eligible for appointment is selected by mistake, contrary to the terms of advertisement and the rules, when such mistake is detected, authorities are bound to correct that mistake and recall the order of selection. Now, therefore, if by mistake person has been given entry, well, that mistake can be corrected and the person can be then shut out from military, and that is what is the Surendra Kumar Das's case. Another matter is Jamini Kanta Das, where it was held that it is only after the enrolling officer is satisfied about certain particulars and a form is signed by the person desirous of being enrolled, then that the enrolling officer signs the form, and under section 9 the person shall then be deemed to be enrolled. And the date of enrollment is therefore the date on which the enrollment officer signs the form. Now, what it lays down and what it involves is that firstly, the enrolling officer should be satisfied that the person opposite him who has come for enrollment has understood what all he has been told, and he is desirous, he is keen, he is volunteering to join the army. there should be no iota of doubt with regard to this. And after that, when the enrolling officer has signed that form and that person has also signed the form, then the process of enrollment shall be deemed or shall be said to have been completed. And on that date only, because the process may carry on for few days. So at that stage, when that form is signed, the process of enrollment shall be said to have been completed. Now, a passage and a travel through these provisions, which I explained to you in this session, would indicate to you that the law and procedure relating to induction in the military has been clearly laid down under the Army Act rules. There are certain provisions in the regulations also, and they will have a clear direct bearing on the jurisdiction of the military over that person, and any impropriety in that may go to impact or in certain cases vitiate the service conditions as regards entry or induction. Thank you.